Hey everyone, welcome back. This time, we're doing a deep dive into In Too Deep.
Oh, a Jack Reacher book.
Yes, the latest thriller.
Oh, wow.
And this one is an Audible exclusive. We are going to be going through some reviews to kind of give you
Ah,
the feel for it, whether it's worth your time or not.
awesome.
We've got reviews from Kirkus, Vault, and Book Reporter. So that should give us
Yeah, that's a good mix.
a good mix, yeah, of perspectives on the book. So, to kind of kick us off here, Reacher wakes up in a hospital bed,
Oh.
handcuffed, injured,
Oh, no.
and he has no memory of how it got there.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a hook.
So, like, amnesia?
Yeah, amnesia. It's a
What
total
the-
blank slate.
Right.
And the Audible summary tells us that he was a passenger in a crashed car,
Okay.
and his captors think that he was involved in whatever landed them in this mess.
Uh-huh.
But of course, with no memory, he has no idea what's going on.
That's interesting because it's like the 29th Jack Reacher book, right?
It is.
But it's the first one that Lee Child's brother, Andrew Child, was like the primary writer on.
Right. Yeah, so we'll be kind of looking to see if there are any changes to the feel because of that.
Right.
Kirkus Reviews called this a classic, like, wrong place, wrong time scenario for Reacher.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, with Reacher, it never is that simple.
I mean, you know there's going to be some twists and turns.
Oh, there are.
What did they say?
So it sounds like we've got art forgery, theft, corporate blackmail.
It's always something, right? I mean, that's why we love these books.
Exactly. And Vold even mentions a Russian job.
Ooh.
So I don't know what that's about, but it sounds kind of,
I'm intrigued.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kirkus actually compares the plot to a game of three-card Monte.
Hmm.
You know, where you never know where the card is.
Yeah.
So Reacher knows somebody is running a game on him. He's just not sure who.
Wow, and he can't even remember anything.
Exactly.
That's rough.
Yeah, he's really in a tough spot. Now, one of the things that Kirkus pointed out, and this kind of surprised me,
Okay.
was that there might be a, quote, downshift in terms of the plot's complexity.
Oh, really? Like, simpler?
Yeah, like maybe not quite as many twists and turns and, all the intricate plotting.
Hmm. I wonder if that has to do with the co-author or if it's just the particular story.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to, hear more about that as we kind of dig deeper.
Yeah. What did Vault have to say about that? Did they think it was too simple?
Well, they did say that they felt like the plot was a little overcrowded at
Ooh,
times.
interesting.
Almost like there's just so much going on that it's a little hard to kind of grasp the nuances of every element.
Okay. So not simple, but maybe just too much crammed in.
Yeah, maybe. But both reviews did say that the story was still action-packed and full of suspense.
I mean, yeah. It wouldn't be a Reacher book without that.
Exactly. And Vault had another really interesting observation about Reacher this time around, and that is that they suggested that he might be showing signs of vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Really? Like the big, tough Jack Reacher.
Yeah, they kind of hinted that maybe his age and his nomadic lifestyle might be catching up to him.
That's interesting. I wonder how they play that in the book.
Yeah. Speaking of interesting, both Vault and Book Reporter mentioned a new character, Jenny Knight, who becomes an ally for Reacher.
Oh, okay.
So what can you tell us about her?
Well, it seems she's a suspended detective who's out for revenge, so her and Reacher have that in common. They're both trying to, take down the bad guys. But both reviews hinted that there might be a little spark between them.
Ooh.
Yeah. A little tension, a little chemistry. So that adds, kind of a new layer to the story, I think. I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it makes me wonder if this is like a new side of Reacher that we're going to see. Like usually he's so, unstoppable and invincible.
Right.
But maybe a little vulnerability makes him more relatable.
Yeah. I wonder if it makes him more interesting too.
Maybe.
If he's not just this, perfect fighting machine.
Yeah, he's got some flaws.
Right.
So Book Reporter had another interesting take, and they claimed that this book reads differently than other Reacher novels. They said he's, quote, in way too deep over his head this time.
What do you think they meant by that?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe because of the amnesia, he has to rely more on, his wits and instincts rather than just brute strength and military training.
Yeah. I mean, he can't really use those skills if he doesn't remember them.
Exactly. And they also pointed out that Reacher actually relies on the few friends he makes in this story to survive.
Oh, wow. That's different.
Yeah, he's usually a lone wolf.
Right.
But maybe this time he needs a little more help.
Yeah. That's interesting. So we've got this amnesia, maybe a slightly simpler plot, and this new ally, Jenny Knight. And, some hints that Reacher is a little bit more vulnerable in this one.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm kind of intrigued. It does sound a little different than other Reacher books.
It does. And let's not forget that this is the first Reacher book with Andrew Child
Yeah.
as a co-author.
Right?
So that'll be an interesting element to kind of pay attention to as we dive into this.
For sure. So do you think it's going to be a good one?
Well, based on these reviews, it sounds like it's going to be a different kind of Reacher experience.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
All right. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Me too.
I'm really curious about that Russian job.
Oh, yeah?
Vault mentioned it. What do you think that could be about?
Well, I don't...
Yeah.
Vault didn't give us a lot of detail, but they did mention forged passports and a race against the clock.
Mm.
So I'm picturing like some kind of elaborate heist or, some high-stakes scheme with international players.
Yeah. Definitely sounds like classic Reacher. And I bet the amnesia just adds a whole other level of challenge to that. Can you imagine like trying to pull off some complex scheme
Right.
when you don't even know who you are?
It's like, how are you going to even function?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it makes me think about how that would work in the audiobook.
Oh, yeah.
Like how does the narrator convey that sense of confusion and disorientation,
Yeah.
but also keeps you engaged?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but the voice acting is going to be really important in this one.
Yeah.
The listener has to really experience the story through Reacher's like fragmented memories.
Right.
There's a really cool aspect of this.
Definitely adds a layer to it.
I'm also curious about the setting. Vault described it as this coastal town with a gloomy, isolated feel,
Oh, wow.
which just sounds like the perfect backdrop for a thriller.
Yeah, it's like that, that's the mood.
Yeah, and it really creates a sense of claustrophobia, I think, too. Like, he's not only dealing with the amnesia and these shadowy figures,
Right.
but he's also in this environment that feels oppressive and secretive.
Yeah, like it's almost like a character itself. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the plot, the characters, the setting,
Okay.
but what about just the overall experience? Like, what kind of ride can listeners expect from this one?
Well, if we go by the reviews, it sounds like it delivers on those core elements that make a Jack Reacher story
Uh-huh.
so gripping.
Okay.
Vault gives it 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
They praise the high-stakes action and the tactical brilliance and, just that classic Reacher hero who just never backs down.
Yeah. And even though they said it might not break new ground in terms of like the formula,
Right.
they still seem to think that Andrew Child really captured what makes these stories so compelling.
Yeah, like it's that familiar comfort food you crave,
Oh, yeah.
but with a few new ingredients to keep things interesting,
I like that.
And I think those new ingredients might be enough to make this one stand out.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of new ingredients, Jenny Knight,
Okay.
both Vault and Book Reporter, kind of hinted at a possible spark between her and Reacher.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it'll turn into something romantic, or is it more of a partnership?
I think it's too early to tell,
Okay.
but the potential is there for sure.
Right.
And I honestly think either direction could be really interesting, Like a romantic relationship would definitely add a whole new dimension to Reacher's character.
Yeah, that's true.
But then again, a purely platonic partnership could showcase a different kind of connection between them, one built on respect and shared purpose.
Yeah, and either way, she sounds like a force to be reckoned with.
For sure.
So I'm really curious to see how she kind of challenges Reacher,
Right.
both intellectually and emotionally.
Yeah, me too. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the audiobook.
Yeah, one thing that keeps coming up in our discussion is Reacher's vulnerability in this one. Do you think this means he's finally slowing down?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
It would be a pretty big departure for him. I mean, think about it. He's always been so self-reliant.
Exactly.
Relies on his own strength and wit to get out of any situation.
Yeah, and Book Reporter even mentioned how he needs guile and luck and help
Yeah.
to survive this time,
Right.
which is not something we usually see from Reacher.
That's a good point. It makes you wonder how much of this vulnerability is because of the amnesia
Okay.
and how much is maybe just a genuine shift in his character.
Yeah, and it raises the question, too, of how this new, more vulnerable Reacher
Yeah.
will resonate with listeners.
Oh.
Will they like it? Will they miss the invincible Reacher?
Yeah, I mean, are we going to get the old Reacher back, or is this the new Reacher now?
And it makes me wonder, too, if Andrew Child is purposely trying to bring this new dimension to the character.
It's possible.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
this is the new direction for the series.
And it brings us back to that question of the co-author's impact. You know,
Mm-hmm.
do you think we'll be able to tell the difference between Lee Child's writing and Andrew Child's?
That's a tough one. I guess we'll have to listen closely and see if
Yeah.
we can pick up on any differences in tone or pacing or character development.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
also curious about how the narrator handles those different storylines.
Oh, yeah.
Because Vault did mention the plot being overcrowded. So,
It'll be interesting to see if that comes through in the audio version.
yeah, the narrator's going to have to balance
Right.
keeping the action going,
Yeah.
but also giving each element
Right.
enough space.
Yeah. And making those transitions between past and present and between Reacher's memories and what's happening now.
Right.
Gotta make it smooth.
You know what? It's making me think that the narrator's performance might be the most important part of this whole thing.
I think you're right. The right narrator can make or break an audiobook.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I'm hoping for a good sense of atmosphere in this one, too. I want to feel that grit and grime of that coastal town and the tension as Reacher is trying to put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And I think sound effects can really help with that.
Oh, for sure. Like the screech of tires or the sound of a fist connecting,
Right.
those little details.
Yeah, it's like you're right there with him.
Exactly. And speaking of being right there, let's not forget that Reacher's in a pretty vulnerable position in this story.
That's true.
I mean, with his amnesia, he's a target for anyone who wants to use him or exploit his skills.
That makes you think, who can he trust?
Right.
Is Jenny Knight really on his side?
Yeah.
And what about the people who captured him in the first place?
Yeah, what's their deal?
Right.
That's what keeps you hooked in a good thriller. You're always trying to guess what's going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. And In Too Deep seemed to have all those elements.
For sure.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture here. This is the 29th book in the Jack Reacher series.
Wow. That's a lot of books.
It is. And it's also marking a significant shift with Andrew Child now as a co-author. Do you think this is like a whole new direction for the series now, or is it just kind of like a continuation of what Lee Child was doing?
Yeah. It's hard to say without reading it ourselves. But, I mean, the reviews point to some changes, for sure. Like Reacher being more vulnerable and maybe relying on others more. The plot might be less complex.
Right. And we can't forget about Jenny Knight either.
Oh, yeah. She's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, she seems to be like a big part of this. And
Right.
who knows? Maybe she'll even be in future books.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to see. I wonder if fans will like all these changes, though.
Yeah.
Like, will they like a more vulnerable Reacher?
Well.
Or they want that old invincible Reacher back?
Right. It's like they're testing the waters here,
Yeah.
seeing how far they can push it.
Yeah. And, the success of this book could determine the future of the series.
Oh, for sure.
If people love it, maybe we'll see more collaborations between Lee and Andrew Child.
So yeah, there's a lot riding on this one.
Yeah, it's not just a new story. It's like a turning point for the whole series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so before we wrap up and let you guys go experience In Too Deep for yourselves,
Okay.
we want to leave you with a couple of things to think about.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about Reacher's vulnerability.
Uh-huh.
Does that make him more relatable, or does it kind of take away from his toughness?
Yeah. And since Andrew Child is co-writing now, should we expect a different feel from future books?
I think those are questions that are really going to spark some debate among Reacher fans.
For sure.
Everybody's got their own opinions.
Yeah, and it all comes down to how you see the character and how you interpret the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of thrillers, or you've ever been curious about Jack Reacher,
Yeah,
you got to check out In Too Deep on Audible.
definitely.
It's a chance to see Reacher in a new light and see where this character might go from here.
And be sure to let us know what you think.
Yeah.
We want to hear your take on this new Reacher adventure.
That's awesome. All right. So until next time, happy listening and get ready for another deep dive
Sounds good.
into a whole new world of stories.